From a real baby's cries ending up in the final cut to a 60-year-old church transported piece by piece across North Carolina, the making of Steven Spielberg's powerful drama hides astonishing secrets that even superfans missed. These behind-the-scenes revelations prove this Oscar-nominated masterpiece is far stranger than fiction. Fact 1. Spielberg's newborn baby provided the film's birth cries. When Steven Spielberg was directing The Color Purple in 1985, he experienced one of those incredible moments where real life and filmmaking collided in the most unexpected way. Right in the middle of production, his wife gave birth to their first child, and the timing could not have been stranger. The director had to leave the set while preparing to film one of the movie's most emotionally intense scenes, where the young character Celie gives birth to her baby after being abused by her father. It was a crucial moment in the story, setting up the trauma and pain that would define Celie's early life, but Spielberg simply could not be there to direct it because he was experiencing his own childbirth moment as a new father. The production team filmed the scene without him. But here is where things get really interesting. When it came time to add the sound of a newborn baby crying to the scene, someone had a creative idea that turned a personal moment into cinema history. They decided to use the actual recorded cries of Spielberg's own newborn baby for the film's soundtrack. So when audiences watch young Celie going through that heartbreaking birth scene in the movie, the infant cries they hear are not from a sound library or a random baby on set. Those are the genuine cries of Steven Spielberg's firstborn child, captured during those first precious days of life. The director missed filming one birth because he was attending another, and somehow his own baby ended up becoming part of the movie anyway. It created an unexpected connection between Spielberg's personal life and this powerful film, adding a layer of authentic emotion to a scene that was already devastating to watch. Fact 2. A church was moved piece by piece for authenticity. The production team behind The Color Purple went to extraordinary lengths to create an authentic, early 1900s setting. And nowhere is this more apparent than with the church that appears in several important scenes throughout the film. Instead of building a fake church set or using a modern building dressed up to look old, the filmmakers did something that sounds almost impossible. They found a real 60-year-old Baptist chapel in Ansonville, North Carolina that was facing demolition, purchased it from the congregation, and then moved the entire structure piece by piece to their filming location near Lylesville, also in North Carolina. This was not a simple matter of loading the church onto a truck and driving it down the road. The crew had to carefully dismantle the building, numbering and cataloging each piece of wood, every window frame, and all the architectural details that made the church authentic to the time period they were trying to recreate. Then they transported all those pieces to the Huntley farm property where most of the movie was being filmed and reassembled the entire church from the ground up. The building was positioned down a hill from the main house, creating the perfect backdrop for the film's powerful religious scenes. The effort paid off because the church did not just look authentic on screen, it was authentic. Every beam, every pew, and every detail carried the genuine wear and history of a real place of worship that had served a community for decades. The production team could have easily built a replica or found a standing church to use, but by taking on this massive relocation project, they ensured that the film's setting had a level of historical truth that matched the emotional truth of Alice Walker's story. Fact 3. Oprah nearly lost her role at a fat farm. Oprah Winfrey's journey to landing the role of Sophia in The Color Purple is one of the most dramatic casting stories in Hollywood history, and it almost ended before it began because of her own insecurities about her weight. After her initial audition, 2 months passed without any word from the casting team, and when Oprah finally called to check on her status, casting director Reuben Cannon bluntly told her that real actresses like Alfre Woodard were being considered for the part. Devastated and convinced that her weight had cost her the role, Oprah decided to take drastic action and checked herself into a wellness retreat in Wisconsin, which people back then commonly called a fat farm, with plans to lose 25 pounds. While she was there running around the track in the cold rain, feeling heartbroken and praying to let go of her dream role, something incredible happened. A woman came running out to tell her there was a phone call, and it was Steven Spielberg himself on the line. The director had somehow learned that Oprah was at this retreat trying to lose weight, and he immediately told her she needed to come to his office the next day. Then he delivered the most unexpected message she could have imagined, saying that if she lost even a single pound, she could possibly lose the part. Spielberg wanted Oprah exactly as she was because Sophia needed to be a strong, physically imposing woman, and losing weight would have completely changed the character. Oprah left the retreat immediately, and according to her own telling of the story, she even stopped at a Dairy Queen on the way just to make sure her time there had not been too successful. Fact 4. Margaret Avery never actually sang in the film. One of the most surprising secrets about The Color Purple involves the character of Shug Avery, the glamorous blues singer who plays such a crucial role in the story. Margaret Avery delivered a powerful performance as Shug, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, but there is something most viewers never realized while watching her sing on screen. Every single note that comes out of Shug Avery's mouth in the film was actually sung by a completely different person, a talented vocalist named Tata Vega, whose name is spelled T-A-H-T-A Vega. This was particularly surprising because Margaret Avery was not just an actress, but also an experienced singer who had performed in musical theater and nightclub acts throughout her career. She definitely had the vocal ability to handle the role. But producer Quincy Jones made the decision to use Tata Vega's voice instead, which reportedly left Avery feeling disappointed about the choice. Even the film's most memorable musical moment, the song called Miss Seeley's Blues, which was nominated for an Oscar in the Best Original Song category, featured Tata Vega's vocals while Margaret Avery moved her lips on screen. Tata Vega was already a respected backing vocalist who had worked with legends like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Madonna, and her powerful voice brought an authentic blues quality to Shug's performances. The dubbing was done so seamlessly that countless viewers over the years have praised Margaret Avery's singing without realizing they were actually hearing someone else entirely. After the film's release, Avery went on to perform the Color Purple songs in her own nightclub act, finally getting the chance to sing the music herself in front of live audiences. Fact 5. Alice Walker approved Spielberg after watching E.T. When Steven Spielberg was being considered to direct The Color Purple, author Alice Walker had serious reservations about whether a white director could properly handle her deeply personal story about black women in the early 20th century American South. Walker had been extremely protective of her Pulitzer Prize-winning novel and was initially reluctant to even sell the film rights to Hollywood because of the industry's history of misrepresenting African American characters and stories. The question of who would direct such an important and culturally significant film weighed heavily on her mind, and she needed to be convinced that Spielberg was the right choice. What helped change her perspective was watching Spielberg's 1982 blockbuster E.T. the Extraterrestrial, the heartwarming story about a young boy who befriends an alien stranded on Earth. After seeing the film, Walker felt that Spielberg had treated the alien character with such genuine empathy, compassion, and understanding that it reminded her of how a person of color might be portrayed with true respect and dignity. She saw in E.T. a character who was considered an outsider, someone who was different and vulnerable, yet was shown with such humanity and emotional depth that it gave her confidence Spielberg could bring that same sensitivity to Seeley's story. Producer Quincy Jones also used similar reasoning when convincing Spielberg himself to take on the project. When Spielberg initially declined, saying he felt inadequate to direct a film about the Deep South and suggesting it should be helmed by a black director, Jones famously asked him if he had to be an alien to direct E.T. The logic worked both ways, helping to bring together the creative team that would make this powerful film. Fact 6. The purple flowers almost got dyed. The title of the film comes from one of the most beautiful and symbolic moments in the story, where the character Shug tells Celie that God gets offended when people walk by the color purple in a field and do not notice it. To bring this pivotal scene to life, the production team needed to create a stunning field of purple flowers on the North Carolina farm where they were filming. 6 weeks before they needed to shoot the scene, greensman Danny Ondrako planted an entire field with flowers that would bloom purple, and the crew waited anxiously to see if the plan would work. When the flowers finally bloomed and some members of the production team saw them for the first time, they were worried that the natural purple color was not vibrant or saturated enough for the film. They actually approached a local person and asked if there was any way to dye the flowers to make them a deeper, richer shade of purple that would look more dramatic on camera. The request seemed reasonable from a filmmaking perspective since they wanted the scene to have maximum visual impact, but it also would have been an enormous and potentially impossible task to artificially color an entire field of living flowers. Before anyone attempted this unusual dyeing project, Steven Spielberg himself came to see the field in person. When he arrived and looked out over the natural purple blooms swaying in the breeze, he was completely taken with what he saw and told everyone that it was the most beautiful field he had ever seen in his life. His reaction settled the matter immediately, and the flowers were left exactly as nature had created them, appearing in the final film in all their authentic, undyed glory. Fact 7. Quincy Jones's dialogue request sparked a feud behind the scenes of The Color Purple, a tension developed between the film's two leading actresses that would affect their relationship for years to come, and it all stemmed from decisions made during the filmmaking process. Producer Quincy Jones, who had discovered Oprah Winfrey and pushed hard to get her cast as Sophia despite her lack of acting experience, became very invested in making sure her character had a strong presence in the film. As production continued, Jones insisted that Oprah's character should be given additional dialogue beyond what was originally planned, wanting to expand Sophia's role and give the first-time actress more opportunities to shine on screen. While this might seem like a positive development for Oprah, it apparently created friction with Whoopi Goldberg, who was playing the lead role, Celie, and was also making her film debut. The situation was delicate because both women were newcomers to Hollywood trying to make their mark, and any shift in focus or screen time could have felt significant to their careers. According to reports from the production, Quincy Jones's insistence on expanding Oprah's dialogue sparked an apparent feud between the two actresses that extended well beyond the end of filming and lasted for several years afterward. The tension between them became noticeable enough that people in the industry wondered why the two stars seemed to avoid each other at events and why Whoopi never appeared as a guest on Oprah's hugely successful talk show for many years. The two actresses eventually reunited for a Color Purple cast reunion on The Oprah Winfrey Show in 2010, 25 years after the film was made, where they addressed the long-standing rumors about their relationship and appeared to put the past behind them. Fact 8. Sophia's dinner speech was completely improvised. One of the most emotionally powerful moments in The Color Purple happens during a dinner scene where Sophia, played by Oprah Winfrey, opens up to Celie about a meaningful encounter they shared. What makes this scene even more remarkable is that none of it was in the script, and the other actors sitting around that table had absolutely no idea what was about to happen. Steven Spielberg had been encouraging both Oprah and Whoopi Goldberg to improvise and ad-lib throughout the filming process, wanting to capture spontaneous, authentic moments that felt real rather than rehearsed. In the middle of shooting this particular dinner scene, Spielberg suddenly stopped and gave Oprah a specific direction. He asked her to express to Celie how Sophia had felt on that day when she saw Celie working in the store while Sophia was shopping for Miss Millie, the white woman she was forced to work for after being imprisoned. This was not something they had planned or practiced, and Oprah had to dig deep in that moment to find Sophia's emotions and put them into words right there on camera. She began speaking from the heart, delivering a moving monologue about seeing Celie and what that moment meant to her character. The stunned, emotional reactions visible on the faces of the other actors around the dinner table were completely genuine because they were not expecting Oprah to suddenly launch into this speech. They were experiencing Sophia's words in real time, just as surprised as the audience would be, and their authentic responses made the scene even more powerful. Spielberg's gamble on improvisation paid off, creating one of the film's most memorable and touching moments. Fact 9. Whoopi's real daughter appears in the film. The Color Purple was Whoopi Goldberg's first major film role and a life-changing opportunity that would launch her entire Hollywood career, so it makes sense that she would want to share this special moment with her family in some way. As it turns out, Whoopi brought her real-life daughter along to be part of the experience. And if you watch the film closely, you can spot her sitting right there on screen. Alex Martin, who was Whoopi's daughter in real life, appears in the movie as one of the children seated at the table during the Easter dinner sequence, turning what was already a meaningful project into even more of a family affair. Having Alex on set meant that Whoopi could keep her daughter close during the long filming process in North Carolina, and it also gave the young girl a chance to witness her mother making history with this groundbreaking performance. The Easter dinner scene itself is one of the more joyful moments in a film that deals with many difficult and painful subjects, showing the characters gathered together for a holiday celebration with multiple generations around the table. Among all those faces, Alex Martin sits quietly as one of the background children, probably not realizing at the time that she was becoming part of a film that would be considered a classic for decades to come. This kind of casting decision was not unusual for the production, as Steven Spielberg and the team made efforts to create an authentic sense of community and family throughout the film. Including Whoopi's actual daughter added another layer of genuine connection to a movie that was all about the bonds between women, mothers, daughters, and sisters across the years. Fact 10. The film tied an Oscar record for most losses. When the Academy Award nominations were announced for the 1986 ceremony, The Color Purple received an impressive 11 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Actress for Whoopi Goldberg, and Best Supporting Actress nods for both Oprah Winfrey and Margaret Avery. Everyone involved with the film had high hopes for Oscar night, and many critics considered it one of the strongest contenders of the year. However, when the ceremony ended, The Color Purple had not won a single award in any category, making it one of only 2 films in Academy Award history to receive 11 nominations without taking home even one Oscar. The only other movie to share this unfortunate distinction was The Turning Point from 1977, creating a tie for the most nominations without a win. The complete shutout sparked controversy and led to various theories about why Academy voters seemed to reject the film so thoroughly, despite nominating it in so many categories. Some people pointed to the fact that Steven Spielberg was not even nominated for Best Director, which seemed especially strange for a film with 11 other nominations and 3 acting nods, since directing actors is considered one of a director's most important jobs. Others suggested that the NAACP protests and boycotts surrounding the film's portrayal of black men had created enough controversy to make Academy voters nervous about honoring it, possibly scaring them away from voting for the movie to avoid being seen as taking sides in the heated debate. Whoopi Goldberg herself later said she believed the boycotts influenced the Academy's decisions, while organizations including the Hollywood Beverly Hills chapter of the NAACP sent formal letters of protest about the shutout, finding it ironic that they were now defending a film they had initially criticized. Fact 11. Spielberg initially refused to direct. When producer Quincy Jones first approached Steven Spielberg about directing The Color Purple, the famous filmmaker actually turned him down flat, and his reasons for refusing were both thoughtful and revealing about his own concerns. Spielberg felt deeply insecure about taking on the project because he believed his knowledge of the Deep South and its history was inadequate for telling such an important and culturally specific story. He was known at that time primarily for making spectacular blockbuster entertainment like Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and E.T. And The Color Purple would be his first serious dramatic film dealing with real human suffering and the African American experience. More importantly, Spielberg told Jones that he thought the film should be directed by someone of color who could relate personally to the struggles faced by Black people living in the Old South and bring authentic lived experience to the material. Quincy Jones listened to all of Spielberg's concerns and then responded with a question that completely reframed the conversation and changed the director's perspective. Jones asked Spielberg if he had to be an alien to direct E.T. the Extraterrestrial, pointing out that great filmmaking is about empathy, imagination, and the ability to understand characters who are different from yourself. The logic was simple but powerful, suggesting that if Spielberg could make audiences believe in and care about a creature from another planet, he certainly had the emotional intelligence and directorial skill to tell a human story with sensitivity and respect. Spielberg appreciated his friend's reasoning and decided to accept the role, calling The Color Purple his first serious film and crediting it as the stepping stone that allowed him to later make Empire of the Sun and Schindler's List. Fact 12. The score had 12 composers listed. The Color Purple marked the first time Steven Spielberg directed a film without using his longtime collaborator John Williams to compose the music, and instead, the score was handled by producer Quincy Jones, who took on double duty for the project. Jones created a beautiful musical landscape that combined elements of classical music, period jazz, blues, and gospel, perfectly capturing the emotional journey of the story and the time period in which it was set. However, because Quincy Jones was already juggling his responsibilities as both producer and composer, he made the practical decision to delegate many of the musical tasks to a team of other talented musicians and arrangers who could help bring his vision to life. When the film was nominated for Best Original Score at the Academy Awards, a controversy erupted over the nomination itself. While Quincy Jones was the sole credited composer of the film and the name most people associated with the music, the actual Oscar nomination listed all 12 people who had contributed to the score in various capacities. The list included Jones along with Chris Boardman, Jorge Calandrelli, Andre Crouch, Jack Hayes, Jerry Hay, Randy Kerber, Jeremy Lubbock, Joel Rosenbaum, Caiphas Semenya, Fred Steiner, and Rod Temperton. This created a dispute within the Academy about who should properly receive credit for the nomination, and potentially for the award itself if the film won. The situation raised questions about how collaborative film music really is and whether arrangers and orchestrators deserve the same recognition as the main composer. It was an unusual moment that highlighted the often invisible work that goes into creating a film score and sparked debate about giving proper credit to everyone involved in the musical process. Fact 13. Spielberg was made an honorary deputy. The Color Purple production brought Hollywood to the small communities of Anson County and Union County in North Carolina during the summer of 1985, and the local residents embraced the filmmakers with genuine Southern hospitality. The movie created jobs for local carpenters, electricians, and extras, injected money into the local economy through transportation and lumber sales, and gave the area a connection to a major Hollywood production that people would remember for decades. In appreciation of the warm welcome they received, the local authorities decided to honor director Steven Spielberg in a special way that he clearly took to heart. On June 29, 1985, Steven Spielberg was officially made an honorary deputy of Anson County, complete with all the ceremony and recognition that came with the title. He was presented with an official deputy hat as part of the honor, and according to people who were on set during the production, Spielberg was genuinely delighted with this gesture from the community. The famous director, who was already one of the biggest names in Hollywood at that time, wore his deputy hat with pride every single day for the rest of the filming process, showing his appreciation for the honor and his affection for the place where he was making this important film. The fact that Spielberg wore the hat daily became a charming detail that locals remembered fondly, showing that despite his enormous success and fame, he could still appreciate a simple gesture of respect and friendship from a small Southern community. It was also a particularly meaningful time for Spielberg personally, as his first child was born during this same production period, making his time in North Carolina even more special and memorable. Fact 14. The town held its own Oscar ceremony. The people of Anson County, North Carolina, had watched Steven Spielberg and his crew transform their small community into a movie set during the summer of 1985, and they felt a deep personal connection to The Color Purple long before it ever reached theaters. Local residents had worked as extras, provided locations, and witnessed the magic of filmmaking happening right in their own backyard. So when the movie received 11 Academy Award nominations, the entire county was buzzing with excitement and pride. However, when Oscar night arrived and The Color Purple was completely shut out without winning a single award, the people of Anson County were not just disappointed, they were genuinely upset on behalf of the film they had helped bring to life. Rather than simply accepting the Academy's decision, the citizens decided to take matters into their own hands and give The Color Purple the recognition they believed it truly deserved. They organized their own Academy Award ceremony at the Twin Valley Country Club, creating a full-scale event complete with all the formality and celebration of the real Oscars. At this local ceremony, The Color Purple won every single award it had been nominated for at the actual Academy Awards, giving the film a clean sweep in all 11 categories that Hollywood had denied it. The gesture was both touching and defiant, showing how much the community valued the film and disagreed with the Academy's complete rejection of it. According to people who were there, the attendees truly believed that the film had won everything in their book, and their homegrown Oscar ceremony became a memorable moment of small-town solidarity and pride that locals still talk about decades later. Fact 15. Winter scenes were filmed with fake snow in summer heat. The Color Purple tells a story that spans several decades in the lives of its characters, which meant the production needed to show different seasons and times of year to properly convey the passage of time. However, the filming schedule created a significant challenge for the crew because all the location work in North Carolina was being done during the summer months, when temperatures in that part of the South can be absolutely sweltering. The problem was that several important scenes in the film take place during winter, and the filmmakers needed to create a convincing cold weather atmosphere, even though they were shooting in the middle of a hot and humid North Carolina summer. To solve this problem, the production team brought in fabricated snow to dress the sets and create the illusion of winter, covering the ground and trees with artificial snow materials that would look realistic on camera. Meanwhile, the actors had to wear heavy winter clothing, thick coats, scarves, and layers of period-appropriate cold weather costumes to match the season they were supposed to be portraying. This meant that Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover, Oprah Winfrey, and the rest of the cast were bundled up in wool and heavy fabrics while standing in the middle of genuine summer heat that was likely in the 80s or 90s in terms of temperature. The contrast between what the camera saw and what the actors were actually experiencing must have been incredibly uncomfortable, as they had to perform emotional scenes while dealing with the physical challenge of overheating in their winter costumes. It was one of those behind-the-scenes realities of filmmaking that audiences never think about when watching the finished product, where the magic of movie making requires actors to endure conditions that are completely opposite to what appears on screen.